Confusionally, nervously, I put down my pen, raised my head slowly. I saw a wide, slender ankle. Shocked, I shot my head up, and there, standing before me, was Miss Yu.
Sensei.
What's going on? She was looking right at me, but she seemed dishonorably out of sorts. Her hair looked disheveled, her gaze was unsteady, and her pajamas were in complete disarray. I mean, can you see that? Boobies about to pop out. She was like a completely different person from the usual kempt educator we'd come to know and love.
Yui sensei! 俺勝手に入っちゃって。
What? I stood up frantically and held out the note I'd been writing, but she was just standing there, stupefied, with a complete vacant expression on her face.
Sensei?
I called out to her as gently as I could, but she was really dazed. She seemed almost like a ghost.
Sensei! どうしちゃったんだよ!
I had a sudden uneasy feeling, worried. I walked up to Miss Yu, grabbed her shoulders and tried to snap her out of it by shaking her. But instead... This just seemed to make her cough. I was just really ill then, okay.
Sensei!
These were wet, productive coughs, and spit was shooting out of Miss Yu's mouth with each one. God, they don't have to say that, God. I effectively tried to shield my face from the spray, but reaction time just wasn't quick enough. You got a full load of cough spray. He's gonna get ill now. I put a hand to her cheek and found it thick with this slimy film of saliva. What the She's a zombie.
大丈夫? Yui sensei.
The fuck is this? Miss Yu hobbled back a little and then fell to her knees with a thud. She completely sprawled out into the hallway, moaning and groaning the whole time.
Sensei?
Wiping the spatterings from her own face, I leaned over and took a better look at hers. It was bright red. Strained breathing, a stuffy nose, and a visible high fever on top of it all. She was sick as could be.
寒いの? でも汗かいてるよ。
寒い。
I thought maybe her sweat has cooled her down, but then realized her disheveled pajamas certainly weren't doing her any favors. With heart pounding a mile a minute, her face red as traffic as a light, I set about buttoning her up. Really? Because the first thing you touch is a shirt, trying to button her up.
ゆい先生、俺のことわかる？持田だよ。寒いならちゃんと布団で寝ないと。出ないと治るもんも治らないって。
It's pretty weird. She absent-mindedly extended her shaking arms like a zombie, slowly reopened her eyes and looked up at me. It was the gaze of a severely fevered mind.
ゆい先生、
司くん。
Wait, who? Who?
え？ うわ
Okay.
つかさくん、つかさ
She was clinging to me tightly. Oh, okay. I couldn't move. I was frozen in shock. She began to weep.
くん、来てくれたのね。つかさ
Oh.
つかさ
くん、嬉しい。よかった。
She's delusional because of the fever.
先生待って人違いだよ
It seemed like I wasn't getting through to her at all. And the sensation of her chest as she held me was making it virtually impossible to fight her grip. I was only powerless against this opponent. I never realized before just how soft a woman's chest really was. Oh, you know, Satoshi getting a bit of it. God, am I that really weak-willed? I had to remind myself that Miss Yu had me confused with someone else. Mustering all the strength I could, I gripped her arms and tried to pry them off of me. But she was a lot stronger than I anticipated, and wouldn't let me get away. God damn it.
怖かったよ、つかさくん。怖かったわ。
怖かった
まさか来てくれるなんて思わなかった。
うわ
As she squeezed me tightly, I felt as though my upper body might collapse under the pressure of her softest parts. Oh my god, I was blushing uncontrollably.
ゆい先生ちょっと離れて
やだ。
先生ってば
I struggled to wriggle free, but Miss Yu's only grabbed me tighter. Our bodies were getting more and more intertwined. Wow. And every time I squirmed, Miss Yu would just pull me even closer.
つかさくん。
うわ
As her chest rose and fell erratically, droplets of sweat slid down into her cleavage. Oh, that means you was looking at there then, huh? Only you would know that if you was looking there. I could feel the heat of her fever radiating off her steadily encroaching face. Okay, as well as the shoulders I grabbed in an effort to push away.
そばにいて、つかさくん。お願い。
だから人違い
Questions were swirling around in my head. Why was Miss Yu crying, and who was this Tsukasa person? But I was most concerned for the state of her pajamas, which had become even more disheveled during our struggle, which...
先生パジャマズボンずり落ちてるから
つかさくん。
She doesn't care.
あったかい。
She doesn't care.
ゆい先生ってば
What's going on? Realizing that not a single word was getting through to her, I sighed resignedly. I'd taken care of Yuka any number of times when she caught a cold and drawn a fever, but I don't recall it ever getting this bad. Miss Yu was usually calm, collected and rational. Who would ever imagine that a fever could leave her so thoroughly discombobulated?
ゆい先生ちょっともう
I put more strength into my resistance, and finally her arms relaxed just a tiny bit. But her expression changed drastically.
やだ。
先生俺は持田聡で司って人じゃ
行かないで。やだ。
She was acting like a spoilt child. Alright. Slipping out of the shoes I've still been wearing, I again drew close to her sprawled out form. There was no way I could just leave her here like this.
後で気がついて怪しまないでくれよ
Miss Yu lethargic, what? Lethargic? I don't know. Groan. Perhaps in response to my quiet murmurings. That's words. At my wit's end, I grabbed hold of her and did my best to carry her into the back room. Gently wheeling her over to her unfurled futon, I then carefully laid her down, making sure I didn't drop her in the process. Then there was the matter of rebuttoning those pesky pajamas again. Okay. I hesitantly pulled up her pajama bottoms and brushed away the stray hairs that were plastered to her brow with sweat. Okay. I did my best avoiding see anything I shouldn't, but I'm a guy, so my heart was pounding the whole time. If she pajamas were soaked through with sweat, she really might have been better off with a change of clothes altogether. But no, that would have been going way too far.
タオルとか何か拭くものでもあればって。
This is a convenience store bag, carelessly tossed to the floor. I glanced inside.
なんだ、冷却シート買ってきてあるじゃん。
Shouldn't even use them.
なんで使ってないんだか。もう。先生、ヒヤッとするけど我慢してね。これでよしと。
Place one of the compressors on her forehead and pulled the covers over her. Shu appeared almost instantly relieved. She exhaled contentedly and her breathing became more relaxed. Finally, she was asleep. Even in sleep, Miss Yu seemed to be suffering.
モネ。なんだ、先生が心配か。だよな。
That cow sound effect, man.
ここまでひどいことになってるとは思わなかったよ。
Monet had crawled up under my legs without me noticing. I began absent-mindedly speaking to him. He meowed in response, and our conversation ended there, as my gaze was still fixed squarely on Miss Yu.
さて、どうしようか。俺、このまま帰っても大丈夫？
She wasn't in any condition to respond. But
ゆい先生。
Miss Yu's hand had slipped out from under the futon and was gently grasping my pant leg. Oh my god. Her grip was much weaker than before, but I knew I'd probably regret it if I went home now. Miss Yu just seemed really lonely.
仕方ないな。
For the time, oh, I accidentally skipped that. Sorry. He said to go sleep. Oh, sorry, that's somewhere. For the time being, I figured I'd watch over her and make sure her condition didn't worsen. Occasionally, Miss Yu's breathing would become ragged and she furrowed her brow. She was in a pretty bad way.
辛そうだな。
Wasn't there anything else I could do? I glanced quietly down the hallway. I noticed when I carried Miss Yu here that the kitchen near the entrance was perfectly neat and tidy. There wasn't any indication it had been used that day at all.
飯食ってるのかな。
Monty's gaze shifted suddenly. I followed it and saw pet bowls I laid out in the corner of the room. Oh, they used to do food for the cat. One dish was filled to the brim with water and the other was piled high with dry cat food.
なるほど。
Oh no, just
モネはちゃんと食べてるんだな。熱出してあんな状態になってても、お前のことはちゃんと考えてくれてるんだな。でもさ、ゆい先生、まずは自分の食事の心配をしようよ。
Shook my head at the whole situation, then glanced down at Monet, who was tilting his head as if trying to understand me. I broke into a weary smile. When I pulled out of the When I pulled out the cold packs, I did notice some cheap convenience store food in the bag as well. I guess that was going to be her food for the day. Not exactly the best stuff to eat when you're sick.
米と、あと卵くらいはきっとあるよな。卵がゆでも作ろう。先生、キッチン借りるよ。
Her
face was bright red and her half-painted, half-contented noises provided me with no clear-cut answer to my question.
仕方ない。ゆい先生の代わりに、モネに許しをもらおうかな。モネ、キッチンを借りていいか？ありがとう。
My next cries helped me assuage my guilt over entering a woman's apartment and borrowing her kitchen. Not that I had any reason to feel guilty, I don't think. Anyway, I mean, circumstances were what they were. Still, I had this nagging sense that I should have somehow felt better about what I was doing.
ゆい先生、ごめんな。ちょっと。
Yeah, she's eventually going to get back to, like, she's going to snap out of it and then she'll be like, what the heck are you doing in there? One by one, I gently peeled off each of the fingers latched onto my pant leg. The expression on her face changed as I was doing so. From contented rest to mild annoyance. But there was nothing to indicate that she might wake up.